Thank you to every single person around this table because you've all helped me with this project. And it has not been an easy task. I have gone to all of you for help and support. And Ben, thank you for being my content reviewer. You rock. You've given me some great ideas as I've gone forward with everything that I've done. When I started this project, or when I started with my master's, Julia and I started this together. Of course, she's a rock star and was able to expedite hers. But after taking a year and a half of classes and I started on my practicum, I had a different approach in what I was going to do my project with. And in visiting with you, some of my ideas were game-based learning or engagement. Those are some of the district initiatives, engagement, building relationships, things like that. And by chance this summer, when we were getting our new computers, I was sitting next to Jane Cornell. And when I started in the district, Jane Cornell and I worked through the program that I was teaching. A lot of the kids that I was working with in 9th and 10th grade implementing Reconnecting Youth, a lot of students really loved Jane Cornell's approach to building relationships, and I worked with her quite a bit. And when I was sitting next to her, she said, "What are you doing this summer?" And I said, "Well, I'm working on my master's practicum project, and I'm just getting started." And so I started to tell her. She said, "Well, what is it?" And I said, "Well, it is how to improve high-risk high school student." And before I could finish, high school student success and achievement, and she said, "Through building relationships." And I just laughed, because I see where she came up with that, because it was something that we worked together at the high school with. And so I chuckled at her, and I never told her what my plan was with game-based learning. Well, once I got home in that week and I reflected, I really changed the direction that I was going, because everything in my life kind of led me to where I am here today at the Alternative Center. And one of the things that I know we talk about a lot is that I feel really fortunate about the things that we implement that are in my project, that in my literature review, and in everything, it reflects what we do here as a group. And so for me, it's like, for us, some of the things that I talk about, it's just review of what we've already kind of practiced and implemented, even though I've dug up the literature to support that. Most definitely what we have here, even though it is difficult because we are dealing with all of the kids that failed out of the mainstream educational, well, not necessarily failed, but a majority of them, especially with that Ignite program, out of the mainstream educational program. So just to tell you a little bit about where I started and about me, some of you know some of my background, and some of you don't. And again, this is my connection to my project. When I was 11 years old, my dad died, and that had a huge impact on me. My dad died, my mom went to work, I was left alone in the house to my own devices, not taking care of myself and things like that. When I was in 5th grade, the teachers were not, we talk about us not having the basis or the knowledge to be able to help a lot of our students, but we most definitely are farther than the 1970s. And no teacher knew how to help me, no counselors, no social workers. And even though I had a connection with my 5th grade teacher, he didn't know how to approach me with the things that were happening. One day, my mom came to school to bring me lunch money, and she's standing in the hallway, and she's crying. I'm like, "Mom, what's wrong with you?" And she said, "Is that how you came to school?" And I was unkempt, my hair wasn't combed, I hadn't, dirty clothes. I just kind of exemplified all the things that we see here as well. But there was one teacher once I got to 6th grade that really made a difference for me and for the rest of my education. I connected with her. She was at my graduation, college graduation. So there was, it's important, and we know that too, because we have students that come back and visit with us, tell us about their success, and those are the things that kind of keep us going as well. And she was that one teacher that throughout my adult life that I remained connected with. Another big impact, and again, I know some of you are aware of this, I know my students are because I talk about these various scenarios in the classes that I teach, but was the Red Lake school shooting. And I don't know if many of you are aware that I lost a student in that incident. That started in my classroom in the school that I was teaching. We had a group of about 50 Native American students that would come from the Red Lake Reservation. They would come off the reservation for many reasons. There was a lot of gang activity on the reservation. You could go to the reservation as, you know, gang members and really hide out and be untouchable in many regards. We also had a lot of training. But one of our buses would meet a Red Lake school bus on the border, and 50 kids would get onto our bus. It would be a long trek for some of these kids on the reservation, and the particular student that I'm talking about that died in the school shooting in 2005, he was a 9th grader. He wanted to leave the reservation because he wanted a better life for himself. He wanted education. I never knew those things about him. I also didn't know that he was a father, and he had already had a child, and his girlfriend was living with him and his family. And so how I learned about him was posthumously. I learned about him in the Bemidji paper, and they had done a big write-up on him. I'm like, oh my God, that was my student. When he would come into my classroom, he reminds me of quite a few students that we have too. He was quiet, he was a nice kid, he wasn't a behavior problem, had a classroom probably in my geography class of that year of 36 plus kids. Every desk was filled. And so as we deal with here, students that are unable to attend, attendance was an issue for the students that were coming from the reservation. And so he would make it a couple of days a week. He got on the bus at 6:15 in the morning. And he would get to our school by 8:10 for classes to start at about 25 after 8. And so you can imagine that that's a long trek just to try to make it to school. When I think about some of the kids that we have that are coming from Farmington, you know, and elsewhere, we try to accommodate them through Schoology, through many different ways that we can to make it work for them, regardless. Those systems weren't really in place, especially in rural northern Minnesota. Those systems were not in place, so it was difficult. He would come, I would get him his work, and again, he was just such a nice young man. Let me know if you need any help, and here's how you do it, and I would explain it to him. And when I would circle the room, I'd come back around, nope, I don't need any help. However, he wasn't turning in work, and he would fall further and further behind, and it became overwhelming. He only made it in our school about 2.5 months, and then he went back to the reservation. And that was in 2004 when I met him, and the shooting took place in 2005, in March of 2005. He made a gallant stand in that room, saved people, flipped tables, but everybody in that room lost their life. So it was 9 students and one teacher and a security guard, because they did have security. And when Jeff Weiss barreled up to the front steps, the security guard thought, I'm going to be able to stop him. The security guards, they had metal detectors, and you could go through those, but they didn't have guns. You know, that's not what kind of place, right? And so when he barreled up in his grandfather's sheriff's car, and he had on his grandfather's flak jacket and his grandfather's weaponry, he had just killed his grandfather and his grandfather's girlfriend. So he barrels up, he comes in, he's loaded down for bear, and he was a big security guard. He tried to confront him, And Jeff, what are you doing? Now, Jeff had just been expelled, and for all kinds of things, and that's where he killed him right then and there. The other female security officer went running down the hallway, alerting everybody, and took off, but he went into a classroom that was immediately there. And so that had a huge impact, most definitely, on me as an educator, as well as how am I going to approach these kids? Do I still want to do this? How am I going to approach these kids? And so I really took that kind of stance that we've got to reach them in order to help them and help with all of these things. And we can see that most definitely in our environment. Fortunately, after I left there after 6 years, my daughter went off to college, and my husband would commute from the cities. I said, okay, you've commuted for all these years, I'll move to the cities. And so I got hired in South St. Paul, and when I got hired in South St. Paul, it was for a curriculum that the district had received a grant for in regard to healthy youth. And it was a prevention curriculum, which I was trained in and implemented for 5 years. And then additionally down here, over the last probably 9 years, I've implemented it on and off with our students. It has some very positive, successful attributes to the curriculum. I know I've shared it with a couple of my colleagues, just different lessons. I don't buy in completely to the curriculum, but it has a lot of good basis and foundation of the curriculum that is used. And so through teaching that, a lot of positive things came out. I didn't have to focus on curriculum. It was helping these kids to reach their goals, be successful, stop failing, passing classes, and really help their overall well-being. And it was really successful with that. There's a lot of kids that I think about from the first 5 years in the district that I'm still connected with. They call me, they're Facebook friends, and you just have, and I know all of us have that, but it's because of who we are and how we're able to make those connections with kids. We're here for a reason in this building. I truly believe that, each and every one of us, because we couldn't do what we do on a daily basis without the help of each other and the fact that we've got some skills that other people just don't, not all educators have. And I believe that, especially with our team right now. I've said it many times to my peer coaches that we're pretty lucky down here because we have such a great group of teachers that are a team, and we work together. We support each other with issues that we're having, and trying to delve further in that and solve these problems together as a team. Not that it's just Robin and Nick's problem, or we're working together and supporting each other with that. So that teaching that class really kind of helps solidify some of the ideas within who I am and the approach that I really wanted to take. Through the literature review, it again supports all the things that we're doing. My literature reviews alternative learning centers or alternative education programs, the different types of alternative education programs, the diversity of our students that come not just to alternative programs, but that most definitely are in our district and within our school. We know that. And how we can approach things, different strategies, creating a positive mindset, teacher practice, what best practices can we use to build relationships and support each other, teacher collaboration. We all do that. What I'd really like to do is be able to have us get some staff development money for the summer and have us work together. They give 30 hours, especially when you're doing a new class or something, to be able to even collaborate further. Because right now when we collaborate, we talk and we say, oh, this is a good idea, let's do this together, let's create this between World Western Civ and World Lit. And so, and last year, Julie and I working together on our masters, and we took science classes. we too collaborated on lessons, which, you know, enriches the student's ability to be able to understand content and transfer and scaffold their knowledge when we are able to do that. So ideally, going forward, some of the next steps that I talked about in my project was if we could be able to do that like in the summer sometime and just you know, work for a week, get 30 hours in and do a lot of collaboration and lesson creation too would be great. What we know and what my chapter 3 reflects is that when the students come to this school, and you and I talked about this yesterday, Nick, they are being successful. Is it to the successful level that we see our students at the high school, or that the mainstream high school where they have students not predominantly failing in their grade book? They have students that, there are a few students in their classes that are failing. Most of the students are A, B, C, and D. They don't have a lot of failures as compared to what we see here. And when we reflect on just the past 8-9 weeks, we see the progress of our students. But when they're not making progress, we're talking to each other. What are you doing to get this student to work? Are you calling home? Have different approaches, parent support. But one of the things that really comes out of it is that when we talk together, which we do every day at lunch, and the difficulty and struggles that we have, we come to some approaches and strategies for each individual student. We personalize education down here more than I ever have in my career. And I've been in the classroom for 20 years. And so being a part of the alternative program, as well as the students that we work with, however challenging that they are, we're making a difference. We do, and we know that at graduation every year when it's like, shoo, here we are, we're at graduation again. And we did it, they did it. But again, they couldn't have done it without the support of this building, ultimately. The other things that we do here that I wrote about in my chapter 3 is this environment really is fosters and promotes building relationships, not just that it's our district initiative. I love how Chuck, for the past couple of years, has said, I want you to take the first 2 weeks. I don't want you to do any curriculum. I just want you to take the first 2 weeks and build relationships, you know, team build, do whatever you have. And that was a conversation that I had talked with Robin at the beginning of the year, saying, okay, Robin, just so you know, I'm going to approach it this way with our new Ignite program. The unfortunate thing is 2 weeks is not enough. You know, it's not realistic to say that in 2 weeks you're going to have trust built and relationships built. Because we know it can take not months, but it can take years before we have established relationship, trust, and we're able to get these students to turn around how they're feeling and really care about, I want to be successful. I want to da-da-da. And so, you know, that my chapter 3 really reflects the work that we do here and the success that we've had. Because even though I can't include data because it's a project, which was really hard to do, I can talk about the success of the Ignite program. And as I spoke with Nick yesterday, is it great? Are they where we want them to be? No, but they're doing better. They're improving, they're doing better, and they're being successful. And that whole idea of well-being too, I hear it from the students. They share it. They share how they felt compared to the high school mainstream educational system as opposed to here. Don't always like it. Jessica, why are you always telling everybody what's happening? Or, it's like they know that we're working together, and so just because something takes place in your classroom doesn't mean that all the other teachers are not going to be aware of the incidents, problems, and again, we support each other, so when those things happen, we're just reiterating support